ask a question that's pertaining to the whole conscious community. What steps should brothers inside the community do when they feel like they've been infiltrated? Where there's a lot of, so-called provocateur behavior going on, divisiveness, people popping up out of nowhere with like different agendas. So,
well, if you know who you trust immediately, first thing you got to do is to find out, if these people are coming into your midst, then there needs to be a serious talking to the people who you know you can trust. And even then, you have to really check a background 2 and 3 deep. You don't know who's who. That's how they got into Wasatch and how they took down Wasatch. This dude was sitting up there, and he was FBI. He was sitting right next to the Empress. You can't. This devil is. He is slick, and he's going to use Negroes. Hollow Negroes. So come sit right next to you, and you wouldn't know the diff. So what I can tell you is that if that person is too damn helpful, watch him. That's how they get in. They get your trust. If that person starts talking to you about somebody else and starts bringing out faults, and that dude didn't exist before that other brother that he's criticizing, watch him. So you have to, it's that sense that you already have that has been locked down and has not been given a chance to be exercised. The mother wit that your mother was exercising and showing you every time you thought you could get away and she knew you did it. Yeah, that's the part of it that you have not trained yourself to actually get into. They will show themselves. There are ways for you to open your mind to it and then isolate.
Don't talk to me, right, about law, right, if you can't show me a federal case that you worked on. So you are a representative of a Moor, right? And what did you do in the court of law? Don't tell me about your little papers that you passed. Or your little internet notes, or your Twitter, right, or your Facebook contact. You say that you for your people, right? That's my problem with the followers, right? Or those people who say that they followers, right? You ain't really doing nothing in the court of law for justice for even the people that you call the Moors.
I hear all this talk being thrown around back and forth about Moors, but I'm not hearing anything about the Roman involvement that helped to create the identities of these people. Or the Greek involvement that helped to create the identities of these people. You people are sick to me. You're stupid to me, all of you. I mean all of you, you're stupid to me. If you really want to know how Ashaka Amos thinks, that's how I think. You're all stupid to me. Because you're not having real conversation. You're not doing real research. And I wouldn't even bring Noble Drew Ali into the discussion. He was just a miseducated black man, period. He did the best he could with what he had at that time. Okay? But I mean, come on, you got to give it up after a while. You don't hold on to bad information or poor information when the real stuff is on the scene.
Listen to the dynamic teachings of the Supreme Grand Master, Naya Malachi Zadok L.
If there wasn't no Noble Drew Ali, right? There wouldn't have been no Master Farad, Ford, Fard, whatever other name you want to call that white boy. He came out to the temples in Jersey, the Canaanland temple, trying to mix in with us. And when Noble Drew Ali identified us with the Canaanite temple, he was talking about the son Hamid. He mentioned the 11th son, Hamid, in his Quran. He wasn't talking about the other tribes. When he identified us as a Moabite, that doesn't mean that's all we were. He knew that Abraham was standing on a mountain talking to Lot about a lot of land. Y'all listen now. It's all similar. He knew that Abraham was talking to Lot and decided which lot of land do you want? And Lot chose to go amongst the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? And Abraham went to get him before the elders would destroy the city. Not because they were homosexuals, but because the scripture says they were wicked. Had nothing to do with homosexuality. That's something Christian churches use so they can go fag back. It just says they were wicked. That's what the scripture says. If you want to add in homosexuality, the word Sodom does not mean homosexuality. They made that up too. But that's okay. That's the game they play. That's where they work. He gave them a choice. The same choice given to Solomon. Wealth or wisdom. Abraham said to Lot, wealth or wisdom. Lot looked at the fruitful land and said, wealth, and took himself to hell. And Abraham had to go down and reach down. Okay. He had to reach down in the filth and muck and mire of Sodom and raise Lot. You understand? And raise Lot out of that filth. And say, you were born 3 times now. Not one. You with me? Yes. But Noble Drew Ali was talking about the Moabite. He was not trying to make you think you was a Moabite of a tribe. This kind of dialogue started after he died by people who didn't understand what he was doing when he was doing this. Who think they do, or thought they do, or feel they do, or wish they do. It's true. Truth is true. He pulled them out of the filth. And then Melchizedek met him and blessed him and introduced him to El, the Most High God, Genesis chapter 16 says. He took him higher to get up off your face, Abraham, and start worshiping the stars. No more than you worship the ground. You with me? So now Lot, in that evil, in that mixed up of wickedness, he had sex with his daughters. Men came to the door. Men had asked for some men inside the house. They didn't say so we could have sex with them. That is not what the Bible says. It says ara, so we could get to know them. Because we see you run out and prostrate them. Who are they? They must be gods. Back then they wanted gods amongst them, or wise men amongst them, to bless their crops, to guarantee safety and health in their land. It wasn't about sex. That's somebody's sickness that they want to put in the body. Their own perversion. Nowhere in that Bible does it say that these men outside want to have sex with the angels. It said right there, I want to know them. I want to know them. You know them. And I'll show you in my Torah and translation various other places where that same word is used ain't got nothing to do with homosexuality. Just 2 people said, I want to get to know you. You follow? But Lot said, before I let y'all take these angels out there and harm them with your wicked self, I'll give you my 2 virgin daughters. That's regards he had these great men. Well, anyway, the promise was broken because the promise said, if I find one righteous person, I'll spare the city. Lot was there. He was supposed to be righteous, and the city got destroyed. So the promise was broken. Lot went out, had sex with his 2 daughters, and one of the children's name is Mim, or in Hebrew, Mo, Ad. Sometimes they add a U in the middle there. Moab. Mo, Ad. The word Mo in Hebrew is of or from Ad, my father. The name Moab just means of my own father. He had another son, Ben-Ami. But the tribe we're dealing with here is Moab, of his own father. He would not be trying to direct you down a path through the world of righteousness in Islamism and tell people that you are a Moabite conceived out of obvious incest. You know what I'm saying? He would not want you to go against the world saying we're Moabites, meaning we're incestual. We're Canaanites, meaning that in Leviticus chapter 14 we have a curse of leprosy. Or that God took our land and gave it to the Israelites. The same God that we as Moabites would be worshiping, the same God that we as Canaanites would be worshiping, took our land and gave it to the Israelites. You obviously are misunderstanding the story. You know what I'm saying? That's not what was meant by those stories. The Bible is nothing but a plagiarized book of the Edomite, the ancient Sumerian tablets, put together by Tammuz. The New Testament, like the brother said, is no more than a play written by Joseph Splatters Tiso. And you are betting your soul on a play and a copy of someone else's book. Nebuchadnezzar is no more than Nebu. Never again. Nebu. That's Nubia again. Nebuchadnezzar. The Babylonian king, that was you, Sumerian. They make him a bad man in the Bible, but he had visions and dreams. He lived the same life as Joseph. Daniel comes in and he raises Daniel because Daniel interprets his dreams. And he makes Daniel a chief in Babylon. Isn't that the same story of Joseph in Egypt? They plagiarize and copy stories. And you're betting your life on Bible. And betting your life on Quran. But Ali went off with the Quran and had it put into coup. And then it moved around the world, the whole circumference of the planet, 24,896 miles. It completed a whole equinox, land 1 mile to every year. And then it popped up here in the west. You follow that? Noble Ali, the prophet, did not give them Muhammad's Quran to read. You understand? He only gave them his own version of Quran Circle 7. They gave them the science of the life and times of Jesus, the most prominent prophet in this country at the time, giving them missing records of Jesus. That was his way of disbalancing Christianity, by introducing something to blacks in America, as they were being called, that they'd never seen before. Giving them the King James Version of the Bible would not help them. Giving them a Quran without giving them the Arabic of it would only confuse them, because the only Quran in existence pertains to specific sects of Muslim, be they Ahmadiyya, Wahhabi, or whatever. It would be fruitless for me to give you a Wahhabi Quran if I'm trying to teach you about Moors, and Moors won't be mentioned in there. He knew what he was doing. But he knew his day would come when you have your own Quran written for you as Moors.
Okay, it's 666, but I'm here with my sevens. I don't even care if I make it into heaven. I'm up all night trying to make it with my veterans. Up all night hearing whispers from the devil. I can't lie, I fucking love it. This world's cold, someone open up a fucking oven. Man, this world needs love, needs some fucking loving. But fuck it, there's too much shit that people fucking up with. So fuck it, let it burn, burn, baby burn. And maybe they'll learn, maybe learn. And please, if they fake, please kick them out my funeral. They took too long to listen, I don't want nothing to do with them.
Yeah, still locked up. All them plea deals made under threat, the rest, coercion, sleep deprivation, crazy. You know what I mean? Denying doc is medicine, crazy, you know? Crazy. Oh, you never heard? Yeah. Dr. York L. They know what they did. at the shopping mall. Like he got so much arms that he's dangerous. Crazy. It's so crazy. You don't even know. Y'all don't even study. Y'all got Nuwapian Moors Constitution. How y'all let them get locked up, yo? How y'all let it happen? It's all good. It's really all good. It's all good. Yeah. Zadok L put me on MC and MAC on the Euro last names, Moorish family tree. Questioning Muslims and Christian belief systems. Battling county zoning bylaw fictions. Some say planet risk, I call him Yamasi Chief Black Eagle. Come to teach Nubian people. Nuwapians are Moorish cause ancient Egypt is stagnant. They so sick he brought them holy tablets. Forgot they drew Ali those following Imam Isa. Signing with no rights, reserving corporate visas. Trump up charges by the city of Georgia. Hearing the torture he got would give you nausea and make you question the trial, judge and jury. Deliberating, drinking liquor from the state's brewery. Sounds like a conspiracy from what I've seen. Nuwapians should sue the state under Title 18 instead of marching and picketing like niggas they not. Nuwapians came to the temple and taking shots at Drew Ali. Almost trying to diss the program but silent when I asked to see their dark Moorish holy Quran.
L, another political prisoner, kidnapped for opening the minds of the listener. And he knew he might get caught up for a fraud, so he told y'all, wear your mask of God. L, another political prisoner, kidnapped for opening the minds of the listener. And he knew he might get called out for a fraud, so he told y'all, wear your mask of God. 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 Wear your mask of God.
Color of office and authority and making. Made dogs sleep on ice blocks and force-fed bacon to force sleepless nights before the trial date. Trump up charges of child molesting and rape. Witnesses said his son made him make up the lies in conspiracy with CIA and FBI. AEO audios, the black book kept me high in spirits. Master teacher's voice, I still hear it. Color of office and authority and making. Made dogs sleep on ice blocks, force-fed bacon to force sleepless nights before the trial date. Trump up charges of child molesting and rape. Witnesses said his son made him make up the lies in conspiracy with CIA and FBI. AEO audios, the black book kept me high in spirits. Master teacher's voice, I still hear it.
Zadok L, another political prisoner, kidnapped for opening the minds of the listener. And he knew he might get caught out for a fraud, so he told y'all, wear your mask of God. Zadok L, another political prisoner, kidnapped for opening the minds of the listener. And he knew he might get called out for a fraud, so he told y'all, wear your mask of God. 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 Wear your mask
Don't tell me I'm not a Moor. You don't have to address me. So spend your time with the family of the brother that got murdered, right? And help him with their legal work.
They don't feel awkward giving state ID to coppers. Highwaymen think killing the bay is gonna stop us.
If they trust you.
Once Kemet came on the scene, everything else gets relinquished in the discussion. Period. Everything else goes in the garbage. Why? Everything else goes in the garbage. Moors goes in the garbage, Hebrews go in the garbage, Islam, all of it goes in the garbage. Because when we were building pyramids, when we were creating mathematics, when we were doing science, when we were in our right minds before we were contaminated by foreigners, fakers, and fools, in the words of Dr. John Henry Clark, we were Kemet, we were Nubia, we were Punt, Pimwet. So stop with the bullshit. Because if you don't, I'ma see you. And I dare any one of you to come up against me on camera. From Wesley on down, I will destroy your shit in your face.
We are a nation within a nation in this country searching for a nationality. And once we find our nationality and serve that nationality, we'll do for ourselves what needs to be done. All ethnic groups in this country understand they got a nationality. Because you answer to such stupid words like Negro and color and black. You have no nationality. Negro is not a nationality. Some lazy Portuguese or Spaniard took an adjective and made a noun out of it. Colored is not a nationality. Black tells you how you look, but it don't tell you who you are.
That's right.
The name of a people must relate them instantaneously to land, history, and culture. And anytime you call a people by their right name, anytime you call a people, name a people, and fail to relate them back to land, history, and culture, you have called them out of their name. There's no black land or black hole. There's nothing wrong with the word black. Nothing wrong with it at all. Only it doesn't relate to a country. The name of every people in the world relate to country. And once you think instantaneously of land, you think of nationality. You belong to something big in the world.
And I'm telling you, I'm a federal pro se litigant, right?
You know what? The interesting thing that I find with people in the name of scholarship, yes, and I'm saying that exactly, looked at Moors as if it's some little club over here.
Yeah, that's what they think.
Everybody of Asiatic African descent are Moors, period. You understand? All you got to do is look at what we have done to our own children with our BS and our fake Afrocentricity and our fake everything. The manifest is what you see all around you. I can understand what you're saying. Just like if you say to a child, 2 and 2 is 4, and the child says, it seems to me that that's belief. The same thing with people that are not scholars. Because everybody knows that our people claim to be scholars, know this information. But what they do, rather than actually raise the people, they actually try to create what you call schismata, divisions, arguments, no unity. They claim unity and do everything to the contrary without scholarship. Only time you get into these debates about colors and black and green and light skin, orange skin girlfriend and my light skin black leather shoes and stuff like that is when you get amongst phony scholars that keep on playing Afrocentricity that really aren't scholars at all, that are really more or less full of crap.
Okay, so
when I talked to Dr. Ben, you know what Dr. Ben said?
He studied the Moorish schools.
Dr. Ben, when he talked about, you know, his travels that he had, the difficulties he had growing up, getting his education, he said, with all the struggles he'd been through, he never really got his solid and grounded education until he went to the Moorish universities. And
many of us studied with Dr. Ben, and he said many more things. We'll say that he went to those schools, but when he went to those schools, they weren't under no Moorish nationality.
Hold up.
They wasn't that. They was
That's
in Spain.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
It's not what I said. Take the wax out your ears. Take the wax out your ears.
I'm gonna be respectful because it's an elder.
Don't be respectful. We're dealing with scholarship.
Right? Moors say that they respect law and civilization. They got to do law and civilization. Hebrews say that they respect Hakma, right? They have to do that in Torah. They have to do that. Christians say that they respect Jesus Christ and love. How come that doesn't happen on your channel, on your interface? Why are these people barbarians and savages? Because you know what? When you mention a person's religion, and you know, to some people, more is a religion. People go crazy. It's like I'm messing with their God. So so what I'm trying to say to the audience is that we've had conversations behind the scene. Brother Reggie's always respectful. But me being respectful does not mean I cannot disagree.
Right.
I can respectfully disagree, which I do. I don't talk like that, but at the same time, Sarnetta, it doesn't matter whether I'm nice or not nice, right? Brother Reggie is going to free black people from the issue of, what's your nationality, brother? Do you have a nationality? Black ain't a nationality, brother, right? Your skin color, Africa ain't a nationality, brother, right? Let me tell you what your nationality should be. You're going to be free today, just like I came for free.
We are a nation within a nation in this country searching for a nationality. And once we find our nationality and serve that nationality, we'll do for ourselves what needs to be done. All ethnic groups in this country understand they got a nationality. Because you answer to such stupid words like Negro and color and black. You have no nationality. Negro is not a nationality. Some lazy Portuguese or Spaniard took an adjective and made a noun out of it. Colored is not a nationality. Black tells you how you look, but it don't tell you who you are. That's right. The name of a people must relate them instantaneously to land, history, and culture. And any time you call a people by their right name, anytime you call a people, name a people, and fail to relate them back to land, history, and culture, you have called them out of their name. There's no black land or black hole. There's nothing wrong with the word black. Nothing wrong with it at all. Only it doesn't relate to a country. The name of every people in the world relate to country. And once you think instantaneously of land, you think of nationality. You belong to something big in the world.
Culture, language, name, land, and God, and destiny, and place on the planet Earth. Without that knowledge, our so-called black people have gone through so many metamorphoses, they don't know what they are, butterfly or not. Poor things, you come up being colored. And then I ask, well, where's colored land? What is your colored name? And do you speak coloredese? And see, they just didn't have an answer for that. What's your colored culture and your colored history? Where on the map can I go to colored land? And so they said, well, I guess maybe we're not colored. So they became Negroes. I asked the same question. Where's Negro land? You have a Negro name? Do you speak Negroese? He said, no, sir. I said, well, sir, what's your nationality then? Being intellectually honest, I can't say Negro. So then my people became black. I'm black and I'm proud. Black and I'm proud. I said, you proud, huh? Okay. Where on the map is black land? Do you speak Blackese? Do you have a black name? What land do you own after your black self? So if I ask Japanese that question, they say, I own Japan, I speak Japanese. My name is Kawasaki, Nissan, and Toyota. I like that. Don't you like that? Then my people became Afro-American. That's the latest thing. African-American. I'm from Africa. Where? Where in Africa are you from? Do you speak African? Who in Africa speaks African? Nobody. People from Greece speak Greek. People from Russia speak Russian. People from China speak Chinese. Huh? People from Poland speak Polish. People from Spain speak Spanish. What do you speak, Black African American? Yo, man, yo. What's happening, Jack? For real. Hey, you know what I mean? See, I won't get it in the world of reality.
All right, you said earlier, you said last week having a conversation with our brother, the Red Pill, last Saturday, that the Moors did not contribute to anything for African people. They more likely contribute to the Arabs. Can you give us a little in-depth on what you mean by that?
Sure. If you're looking at the pre-Moroccan civilization, the pre-Moroccan civilization was a civilization for the best interest. The pre-Moroccan civilization, where were people that you can call the Moors? Now, we have disputes because some people think that Mansa Musa was a Moor, right? No, he was a black man who converted to Islam, right? To the detriment of African people, meaning he thought he was converting to Islam, but he was not converting to Islam. He converted to Arabism, right? And the Arabs opened up Africa for the trade, but he was not what you call a Moor, right? Were there Moors in antiquity, or people that you can call Moors? I want to hold off on that, right? Because we're going to talk about that in the debate, right? But writing, language, literature, moral and ethics instructions, dietary, cities, states, nations, laws were in formation between Nile Valley and Sumer, right? Way and there wasn't a whisper of a Moor.
The Moors. You know, who are the Moors? Where they come from? Okay, the first thing is that the Moors do go much further back than the so-called, Islamic period. I mean, the Moors didn't come into existence with Islam. They've been around way before Islam. That's number one. They've been around for a long time. You know, they go back thousands of years, and they've been around since Egypt. Actually, well, not since the beginning of Egypt, but they've been around. You know, there are historical records of them. You know, by the Egyptians. I mean, were the Egyptians Moors? No. Did the Egyptians know about the Moors? Yes, they knew the Moors. Okay, the Egyptians knew all about the Moors. Basically, if you want to go back to where the Moors actually come from, we have to go back to around, say, the 18th dynasty in Egypt, which is around 1400 BC, around there somewhere. So, the Moors were in Carthage during Hannibal's time. They've been around, all over the world, basically in various theaters. They have done various, fought in a lot of wars. I mean, the Moors they have a pretty extensive history. Let's just say that, okay? Now, let's start with Egypt now. The Egyptians knew the Moors as, the Mu, or the Ma. That's what the Egyptians call them. They call them the Ma, which was short, which is an abbreviation for Meshwesh, which I guess would be like Moorish, Meshwesh. That's what the Egyptians used to call them, and for short they'd call them Mu or Ma. Okay? And these Meshwesh or Moors were, they basically resided west of the Nile Valley in North Africa, in what we call today the Maghreb. Okay? And that would be Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Mauritania, some parts of the Sahara, and some parts of Niger, in that area. Okay, they basically the Meshwesh or the Moors basically were of that area. Okay, so at one time all of that area was considered Mauritania or even Morocco, at various times, depending on what was going on. So basically, it was as a matter of fact, the ancient Egyptians used to call that part of the world Libu, which is now known as Libya, today. But I mean, when I say Libya, I mean not just Libya as we know it today, but Libya would incorporate all of North Africa, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and all of the areas known as, and they call these people the Libu or the Meshwesh. Basically, with a conglomeration of various tribes, the Meshwesh with various tribes who basically controlled that area, lived in that area. The Egyptians also knew them as part of as the Moabites. The Egyptians call them Mu'ab, and they knew them as part of the they knew them as the Moabites, which is a part of the Meshwesh conglomeration of tribes. So what you had was a various conglomeration of tribes in that part of the world, North Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and West Africa, west of Egypt, west of the Nile Valley, in North Africa. Okay, that part of North Africa. So this is where the Moors basically originated from. Okay, which is why they're so concerned with being Moors of Morocco, because basically that's their roots, that's their ancestry. Okay, now the demographic of the Moors are basically, and you know, it's always been that way actually, are basically from dark, you know, very dark to very light. Okay. As a matter of fact, in Egypt, the Egyptians have pictures of the Moors, and they show them as some, you know, basically like light-skinned Africans. Okay. You know, what we would call today, what some people call, you know, it's not a politically correct term, but I guess the best word to describe it would be mulatto, which again the root of that word is Moor. So these are mulattoes and various other Africans. You know, remember this is North Africa, so you have, you know, light Africans from dark Africans. You know, these Moors is also what we call. They were in ancient time. They were called the so-called part of the so-called Berber, or the Imagazin people. They became to be known that later on. But the roots of these Berbers are from these Moors back in ancient times, or these Moorish tribes.
So when we hear the Moors come, they actually receive the great civilizations, positive and bad. They didn't contribute to them. You never hear, the only thing that you hear is that they contributed to Spain. Yeah, they woke up Spain. If they were not in Spain, right, during the dark ages of Spain, right, civilizing those regions, Spain may have never woken up. Spain, in their first inquisitions, took the wealth of the so-called Moors and used that to finance their voyages overseas. Spain, in their first inquisitions, took the wealth of the so-called Moors and used that to finance their voyages overseas. So how did that benefit African people? What part of the so-called Moors at that particular time benefited African people? Every time they came, the Arabs came, the Berbers came, right? And Africans were, facilitators for other empires. It benefited the Arabs, right? The conversion to Arabism benefited the Arab. It did not benefit the African.
All right, well, you know today's class is going to be on Moorish history.
Right.
Right. And I did this because I just wanted to cover certain things. It's actually going to be not just, you know, tonight, but it's going to be next week's, you know, something like a second part to this as well. And just want to cover for today, you know, their rule in Spain. And next week is going to go into the rule of Scotland Yard and France and Britain. But tonight, solely I wanted to go more into the rule in Spain, and I wanted to go out of two books, one by my father, Dr. York, Set the Record Straight, and out of Golden Age of the Moor by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the first thing you have to define is what actually is a Moor. You know, the word Moor, the Latin word Moor, which is what was being called those Africans out of northern Africa, Moors or Morenos, which meant black skin. Okay. At one point, you had all of Africans at that specific time during the Dark Ages and during the Middle Ages, medieval times. They were called Moors. Regardless of where they were in Africa, they were called Moors. When they confronted certain people, when they confronted certain Africans, they were called Moors. Before they were even just called Moors themselves, they were known as Blackamoors. And once they began the miscegenation process with the Spaniards in Portuguese, in Spain, they began to be known, some of them was known as Tawny Moors, Tawny Moors, you know, what you would know now as the mulatto Moors. But they still had, regardless of the skin tone, they still had that prestige, they still had that power over the Europeans, okay? And at some point, the Berbers, they all married in. They all came together, from the Berbers to the Muslim Arabs, those that were under Islam. The Moors, at some point, the majority were under Islam. But once the Tawnis and once the Black Moors and the Berbers came together, they were just known as Moors. And once, at some point, when they would confront certain Europeans, they would be still, that's what they were called. They were called Moors. And I want to start. The thing is, people have to understand as well, before I even go into it, is that prior to 1492, prior to Columbus setting sail, and prior to, that period where racism pretty much started all across the world by Columbus, you had a period of time where we were known as Moors. And I realized the word nigra or Negro came in during the point of slavery. But prior to slavery, we weren't called that. We weren't called Negro, we weren't called nigger. We were known as Moors. And 1492 was that point when things began to have a drastic change, not just for the African, but actually for the European empire as well, that went on in that part of Europe. Because you have to realize 70 to 75% of Europe was inhabited by Black Africans or Moors. Just to say Moors, they inhabited that whole land. And if it wasn't for them, they would not have even elevated out of what's known as the Dark Age that lasted over 200 years. Because it was 200 years that Europe was going under a Dark Age period. And during that Dark Age period, this was going on in Europe. They had no electricity going on. They had no running water. They had no lights. They had nothing. They had no civilization whatsoever, no language. They didn't have any education at all. And when the Moors first came in, they literally changed the whole complexity of Europe completely, literally. Because prior to that, again, it was literally uncivilized situations going on for the Europeans. We always say the Moors, when we say we civilized the savage, the Moors were known as those that civilized the savage, that were living a filth of a life in Europe. And the first part I want to start from is from Let's Set the Record Straight by Dr. York. Matter of fact, I want to start at Golden Age of the Moor by Dr. Soderman. And this was one essay by John J. Jackson, and it was compiled together by Renoka Rashidi. And I'm starting on his essay. It was called The Empire of the Moors. Now, the Moors were people who lived in Morocco. That's the reason they called it that. The word Moor means black. It meant black people. In ancient times, all Africans were called Ethiopians or Cushites. And in the Middle Ages, the Africans were called Moors. The word Moor literally means black. So the Moorish people were the black people. In medieval times, the name Moor was not restricted to the inhabitants of Morocco, but it was customary to refer to all Africans as Moors. The highly ambiguous word Negro had not yet been invented. The word Negro came up when the slave trade came in. In other words, you have a lot of little fish floating around in the ocean. They're little fish and they have various names. But if you put them in cans, they all become sardines. So when they put the black man in slavery, he became a Negro. We know from the contemporary records which have come down to us from the era of medieval Moorish supremacy that the Moors did not consider themselves as white men. The Moors in North Africa were converted to Islam during the 7th century. An army of 12,000 Africans were recruited and placed under the leadership of the Moorish general Tariq. Tariq was an officer in Tariq's army. He led the first expedition to Spain to find out what the Moors had to face. The army landed at a place later named Tarifa in honor of Tariq. He set up a custom house there. He found out that they had no serious opposition to face in Spain. Tariq and his small detachment plundered. Algeciras, and other towns and returned to Africa with their boats loaded with spoils. There was a kingdom of the Visigoths, the Western Goths. There was a Greek governor in a place called Ceuta on the African coast. The story is that Count Julian, the Greek governor, sent his daughter on a vacation to visit King Roderick, and he raped his daughter. Julian persuaded the Moors to invade Spain because he said it was unprotected. All they had to do was walk in and take it. General Tariq and his army landed on an isthmus between an encampment then called Mons Calpe, and the continent of Europe after that, Mons Calpe, was renamed Jebel Tariq, the Hill of Tariq, or as we now called it, the Rock of Gibraltar. Tariq's African army captured a number of Spanish towns near Gibraltar, among them Heraclea. Then he advanced northward into Andalusia. The Visigoth king Roderick learned of the invasion and raised an immense army for the defense of Spain. The two opposing armies met in battle near Xeres, not far from the Guadalete River. After overrunning most of the Iberian Peninsula, the Moors pushed on through to France, where they were repulsed with the heavy losses at Poitiers by the Franks under Charles Martel, the grandfather of Charlemagne. After this significant setback, they retired into Spain and there laid the foundations of a new civilization. The country was immeasurably enriched by their labors. New civilization. They, for instance, introduced the silk industry into Spain. In the field of agriculture, they were highly skilled and introduced rice, sugar, cane, dates, ginger, cotton, lemons, and strawberries into the country. The Spanish city of Cordova in the 10th century was very much like a modern city. Its streets were well paved and there were raised sidewalks for pedestrians. At night, one could walk for 10 miles by the light of lamps, flanked by an uninterrupted extent of buildings. This was hundreds of years before there was a paved street in Paris, France, or a street lamp in London, England. The population of Cordova was over 1 million. There was 200,000 homes, 800 public schools, and many colleges and universities. Cordova possessed 10,000 palaces of the wealthy, besides many royal palaces surrounded by beautiful gardens. There were even 5,000 mills in Cordova at a time when there was not even one in the rest of Europe. There were also 900 public baths, besides a large number of private ones, at a time when the rest of Europe considered bathing an extremely sinful and to be avoided as much as possible. Cordova was also graced by a system of over 4,000 public markets. The Great Mosque of Cordova, another grand structure, had a scarlet and gold roof with 1,000 columns of porphyry and marble. It was lit by more than 200 silver chandeliers containing more than 1,000 silver lamps burning perfume oil. Going down even further, education was universal in Moorish Spain, being given to the most humble, while in Christian Europe, 99% of the people were illiterate, and even kings could neither read nor write. You had Moorish women who were doctors and lawyers and professors. Jewish scholars studied under the Moors, and then went to England and set up a scientific school at what later became known as Oxford University. The Moors furnished the knowledge and the Jews collected it. The Jews were intermediaries. The Moors and Christians were fighting each other, and the Jews formed a bridge between them. I'm going to go further down. This is on page 87. Still the same book, Golden Age of the Moor. After consolidating his position in southwestern Morocco, Yahya died in 1036. This was still during the Moorish rule, and was succeeded by his brother Abu Bakr, who led his armies to further victories. Abu Bakr retired in southern Morocco and turned over the northern part of the country to his cousin Yusuf Tustan, who soon became the master of the northwest Africa. He is also known as the founder of Morocco. In the year 1062, Yusuf laid the foundation of the town of Morocco within his own hands. By the year 1082, he had long been the supreme ruler of that portion of the world, when therefore he consented to cross over to Spain, and in the course of time drove back the Christians and established once more a supreme sultan upon the throne of Andalusia. His conquest and his dynasty, which he founded, must be regarded as an African conquest and an African dynasty. I'm going to go into, let's set the record straight. And again, this is written by my father, Dr. York. Did you have anything you wanted to clarify, any questions before I go further?
I do.
Go ahead.
Just two questions, just for clarification, just so I can research it, if you can help me out. You had mentioned the Berbers. Exactly the location is, or what is Berbers? I felt like I read that in a book before, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, when you look up the word Berber, or known as Barber Coast, the word, just for future references, the word Barber actually comes from the word Berber as well, or barbarian. The original barbarians were actually the Moors. When they say the Berbers, that's why when you see the skull and bone or the skull and sword, that's actually going into the Moorish pirates that was sailing certain parts of Europe and certain parts of Africa. So when you say the term, the usual term I always hear, invading Berbers, you're dealing with those that were the pirates, the original Moors that were Berbers. So anytime you hear the word Berber, you're dealing with Blackamoors or Moors, to be more specific.
So are the Berbers looked upon from at a negative perspective, or it depends who's looking at it? Not at all.
No, not at all. But if you're just looking at it from what is the word defined as, they're just known as Moors. The Berbers is known as Moors. That's it. Thing is, when you're going into European history, Europeans have a good methodology of confusing people. So when they say the word Berber, automatically they'll make you subconsciously assume Pale Arab. Automatically you're invading Berber, or you think Berber, automatically because it's the same thing with the Moors. When you say Moors, automatically the first thing that comes out of the subconscious with a lot of us is that they were just Muslims who ruled a certain portion of Spain for a certain amount of time. But as of course we know that that's not the case. So when you deal with the Berbers, automatically think in your mind and know, even do your research and realize that the Berbers was just nothing but Moors that were known as those that would cross over certain parts of Europe, and they weren't the ones that usually were just walking. They were the ones that were just going off of the coast. They usually were going in coast. They were usually going in a certain amount of ships at a specific time.
Okay. What about, I wrote down the word Cordova. Cordova was a city, correct?
Yes.
And that was in Spain?
That was in Spain, yes.
Okay. Also, just to get your perspective, I wrote down during the 7th century, the Moors were converted to Islam by Tariq, right? What was that? Tariq, what was the second part of his name?
I'm going to go into it. I'm going to go right back and get right to it again just to make sure you got it. Here we go, right here. Let me read it out again. See, the Moors in North Africa were converted to Islam during the 7th century. An army of 12,000 Africans was recruited and placed under the leadership of Moorish General Tariq.
Okay.
So he didn't convert them. They decided to convert to Islam. A certain amount of them converted to Islam.
Okay.
Yeah, this was just prior to the invading into, what we now know as Spain, because this was before it was called Spain. They didn't have a name for it at that time.
Right.
So when you're dealing with, good.
What do you think the Moors? I know some of them. They say their roots are, they will acknowledge the roots are from Kemet, but they still practice Islam. Do you think that's a contradictory, or do you think you can still believe and know the knowledge if you think if the Moors originally practiced from a Kemetic perspective and now practice Islam? I'm not sure if I'm making my question clear. Do you get it?
No, I fully understand what you're saying.
Okay.
You can call yourself a Muslim and still hold sacred certain practices that are like century practice, that's a like 10,000-year practice. They consider themselves to be Islam. They consider themselves to be Muslim in terms of religion, but they can. Because remember, one of the main focuses, one of the main purposes of the Moors was to keep the Egyptian mysteries sacred. That's why to fast forward, when they were civilizing the savages and they were giving them a certain amount of knowledge, and they decided to bring them create what we know now as Freemasonry, they gave them a certain amount of they gave them 3 degrees, and then giving them 3 degrees. You get the rest of the stuff, the honorary degrees and stuff like that. But the point is that they gave them a certain amount of Egyptian information. It's like, give an example. You got certain people in Sudan today that, let's say, 200 years ago in the 1800s, they were Muslims, of course, but you still had they were known as these were the Dungalawi tribes were Muslim by religion, but they still sent for over a 10,000-year period, 15,000-year period, to even be more exact, they kept certain Egyptian customs, because the Sudanese that are there now, the indigenous Sudanese that are dark-skinned people, are originally inhabitants of Egypt that migrated into Sudan. What they did was they kept certain customs, a nose ring, certain hairstyles, just certain little customs here and there, but as a religion, they consider themselves to be Muslim. So I think that you can still consider yourself to be whatever religion you are, because remember, you still had Christian Moors. The Moors that were in England and Scotland Yard, they were Christians. It's just Moor itself is just what they were. But in terms of the religion that they practice, you can still practice whatever religion you decide. But if you're keeping the Egyptian mysteries, that's one of the main things. Is just that it was handed down to them, and they had to continue it on and on and on and on. So I think that just from my perspective, you can keep whatever religion you are and still keep century customs and keep 1,000-year customs as well.
All right. Let me ask you a question, another one, before you go on. I don't want to hold you up too long. I wrote down Empire of the Moors. Moor means black and comes out of Morocco. Is Morocco, I know just from the studies, when those mutants up in Europe, wanted to colonize Africa, that some parts of Africa didn't have names to their country. Is Morocco an old name?
Morocco was just named after the Moors.
Okay. Okay.
That's it.
Morocco. The name Morocco came after the Moors.
Exactly.
Okay, so the Moors were there before Morocco. Okay.
Exactly. When you say North Africa, they was just. That's why I had to read and give you that this person, Yusuf the First, was the one to found the name Morocco. He was a Moor, so he decided to name it after, pretty much after what he was being called, or what they all were being called at that time. It was his name, Yusuf Tashfin. He's the founder of Morocco. But prior to him naming it Morocco after, Moor or Moors, there was no name for it. It was just North Africa.
Let me ask you another question real quick. Moors, Moor means black. I know that. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But were the mutants calling Moors, was Moor a derogative term to them? Do you know, in your opinion?
To whom?
The mutants.
You said was Moor a derogatory term to whom?
Was that a derogatory term to call black-skinned folks from a mutant perspective? Do you know?
Not at all. No.
Okay.
Moor is a nationality.
Right.
Just like if you would say you're Yamasi, my father is Yamasi by bloodline. That's a nationality. That's a sovereign nationality. If I say I'm Morenos, regardless of how you spell it, that's a nationality. Automatically, that gives you sovereign ground to stand on. You got to realize that black, even though in reality black is not a color, black is a state, triple darkness, blackness, et cetera, that we know by right knowledge. If I'm calling myself a black person based upon, separate from what I just said, I'm calling myself a black person based on nationality, that holds no weight at all over the world. But if I call myself Moor by nationality, that actually holds some historical weight. Subconsciously, if I call myself Moors, you gotta realize Moors pretty much ruled, again, Moors, that's what we were known as. The Africans were known as Moors during the medieval times and during the Dark Ages. And this is, again, over an 800-year period. And if I call myself a Moor, just as an example, I'm giving myself nationality again. Because as a black person, or just say African-American, Afro-American, none of those terms mean anything at all. Just as a sidebar, since you asked that question, if I call myself black, number one, that's no weight at all. A black person holds no weight in society at all. Black man has no weight in society. That's the reality. If I call myself a gay man, gays have if I'm gay, if I say I'm a gay man, even though I'm black and I consider myself a gay, that's nationality, because they're backed financially by the feminist movement. They're backed by the feminists, and that's their own nationality. So financially they're backed, which means that if I was to shoot and kill one, I'm going to serve a bunch of time in prison for doing that. That's a hate crime. If I do the same thing to a Hasidic Jew or a proselyte Jew, those who call themselves Jews, that's going to be a problem, because again, that's an anti-Semitic killing. And I could serve a bunch of years in jail time or prison time for that. But going back, if I kill a black man, I can get off for that. You know why? Because black is not a nationality. See, if I call myself, you can call yourself a black Seminole, and at some point they may decide for that to be a nationality because of their historical significance in the 1830s. Yamasi Native American, that's a historical significance, and it's also a nationality. But if I call myself Moor, automatically, and I have the paperwork and everything to show for it, that's nationality. That holds weight. That holds more weight than call myself African American, Afro American, black person, etc.
Okay.
So most people who will look at that from a negative perspective, the problem is we don't know our history. We don't know our story, so we're liable to be subjected to whatever other people tell us that we are or define us as. The reason why I'm also going out of these books, too, is because both of these books are out of print. So I think it does benefit the people that, they at least get a bit of information from something that isn't even really in existence anymore. And going into, actually, not this page, going into page 110 of Let's Set the Record Straight. And we're starting in part further down in the paragraph. So in 711 AD, learning that Roderick was busy in the north of his dominions, Musa sent out one of his generals, the Moor Tariq ibn Ziyad ibn Abdullah ibn Wahul, with 7,000 troops, most of whom were Moors, to make another raid upon Andalusia. Tariq landed at the Lion's Rock, which became known as Jebel Tariq, today Rock of Gibraltar. In 711 AD, Tariq won a victory over the Visigoth army of Spain. It was during this conflict that Roderick, the last Visigoth king, was killed. In 712 AD, they captured Toledo. In 719 AD, they crossed the Pyrenees Mountains and entered into France. Thus began the 800-year rule of the Moors in Spain. During this time, the Moors developed the greatest cultural civilization known anywhere in Europe. The last half of the 11th century, there emerged a powerful dynasty from Senegal, West Africa, known as the Almoravids. They established their capital at Marrakesh, Morocco, and became masters of a new empire that included Senegal, Morocco, Tunisia, and southern Spain. This empire was even larger than Western Europe. At this time, the first general of the Senegalese was Abu Bakr, who was supplanted by a stronger general, Yusuf bin Tashfin. Yusuf's first aim was to construct an elegant capital with marvelous houses, a marble-floored palace, and beautiful flower beds. The city that he built, Marrakesh, or Morocco City, became the name of the country. When Moorish power was declining in Spain, Yusuf crossed the Mediterranean into Spain in order to reinforce Moorish control. He brought 15,000 Moorish troops with him and defeated Alfonso VI with his 70,000 Christians at the Battle of Zalaca. During the wars of the Almoravids, the greatest commander and hero of Spanish literature was slain. His name was Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, better known as El Cid. The Moors were known for more than just conquest. While the remaining part of Europe was in a state of ignorance, the Spanish people took advantage of the knowledge of the Moors. During the Moors' rule, many other capitals of Europe were mere hamlets, but Cordova, the capital of Spain, was a booming city. It is said that after dark, one could walk many miles in Cordova and never pass through a street not lighted by public lights. When a person walked out after dark in London, he had to carry a candle or lantern with him to illuminate the path, and had to wear high shoes to walk through the thick mud that often covered the roads. When many Europeans were garbed in skins and in coarse garments, the Moors were wearing silk, linens, and cottage cloth. They also washed in 900 bathhouses of Cordova. The palaces of the Moorish Sultan was far greater in beauty, comfort, and wealth than any of the castles of the ancient kings. The Moors used extremely high polished marble in their construction. The sides of the walls were patiently carved, and the floors were made with various decorations called mosaics. The Moors were masters in mosaic work. Moorish normal life was based on agriculture, manufacturing, and trade. the Moors brought into Spain rice, cotton, peaches, oranges, and lemons. Silk culture was introduced into Spain by the Moors. The Moors had fine pottery, glazed tiles, silks, velvet, brocades, jewels, and ornamental leather products. The Moor civilization had a gigantic effect on Portugal and Spain. This is the reason that these two countries were the first European powers to emerge after the Dark Ages. Do you have any more questions before I get any further?
Nah, everything's good, brother.
You go? Okay. I'm going back into Golden Age of the Moor by Dr. Sertima. This is to conclude the Moorish rule. I'm going further down from 800 all the way into, about 1092 or 1081 in that area of time. This is on page 88, Golden Age of the Moor. In the early part of the 12th century, another religious former calling himself the Mahdi appeared in Morocco. He named his followers Almohades, or Unitarians. After the conquest of Morocco in 1147, when the last Almoravid king was dethroned and executed, the Almohades seized the reins of government and then invaded Europe. By 1150, they had defeated the Christian armies of Spain and placed an Almohaded sovereign on the throne of Moorish Spain. And thus, for the second time, a purely African dynasty ruled over the most civilized portion of the Iberian Peninsula. Under a great line of Almohaded kings, the splendor of Moorish Spain was not only maintained but enhanced, for they erected the Castile of Gibraltar in 1160 and began the building of the great mosque of Seville in 1183. The Giralda of Seville was originally an astronomical observatory constructed in 1196 under the supervision of the mathematician Gerber. The Almoravid had established a Spanish court in Seville. The Almohades set up an African court in the city of Morocco. And Ibn Sayyid in the 13th century describes Morocco as the Baghdad of the West and says that under the early Almohaded rulers, the city enjoyed its greatest prosperity. In the early part of the 13th century, the Moors' power in Spain began to decline. Unfortunately, the Muslims, due to religious and political differences, began to split into factions and wage war amongst themselves. At that same time, the Christians of Europe, having absorbed the science and culture of the Moors, which enabled them to bring to an end the long night of the Dark Ages, began to form a united front in order to drive the Moors back into Africa. The dominions of the Almohades were slowly but surely captured by the Christian armies, and after almost a century of brilliant achievement, the Almohaded dynasty was ended when their last reigning ruler was deprived of his throne in the year 1230. Muslim Spain declared independence under the rule of Ibn Hud, the founder of the Huddite dynasty. The Christian forces, in the meantime, conquered one great city after another, taking Valencia in 1238, Cordova in 1239, and Seville in 1260. By 1492, the Moors had lost all Spain except the kingdom of Granada. The Christians, although not free from internal disputes, were finally united by the marriage of Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, which joined in peace the formerly hostile royal houses of Aragon and Castile. The united Christian forces surrounded the city of Granada and blockaded it for 8 months. The Moorish king, Abu Abdallah, also known as Boabdil, finally surrendered, the Moors lingered in Spain for a little more than a century. By 1610, through expulsion and migration, 1 million, among them many Jews, had returned to northern Africa and western Europe. The expulsion of the Moors from Andalusia was a serious setback to modern civilization. The true greatness of the Moorish culture was not generally known to the educated classes of the Western world. The standard work on the Moors is the 3-volume history of the Moorish Empire in Europe by S.P. Scott. One of the very best studies of the contribution of the Moors to world history is the 1-volume edition, The Story of the Moors in Spain, by Stanley Lane Poole. It was published in London and New York in 1886. Lane Poole was English and was professor of Arabic at the University of Dublin. Of One Conquest and Expulsion of the Moors, Lane Poole wrote, in 1492, the last bulwark of the Moors gave way before the crusade of Ferdinand and Isabella, and with Granada fell all Spain's greatness. For a brief while, indeed, the reflection of the Moorish splendor cast a borrowed light upon the history of the land which it had once warmed with its sunny radiance. The great epoch of Isabella, Charles V, and Philip II, of Columbus, Cortez, Pizarro, shed the last halo about the dying moments of a mighty state. Then followed the abomination of desolation, the rule of the Inquisition, and the blackness of darkness in which Spain had been plunged ever since.
Law that benefits government law that benefits black people. And I claim that my Black City Sovereignty is a better path to empowerment for quote unquote our people than any Moorish plan. Because in your plan, we have to say that we are Moorish Americans. We have to go through the courts. We have to go through the court system. There is no revolution. There is no movement. Sarnetta, it is a legal process that we have to go through. And then once we say as a group that we are Moorish Americans, then America could say, you know what? Give them an exit plan, right? Kick them out. All the work that you did, thank you very much. Have a nice day. You go find a place where you want to go, because guess what? You can't stay here, right? So even if we won, even we became Moorish Americans, do we have to accept Islam? Do we have to accept Arabism? Because Islam and Arabism may be two different things, but I am not going to accept an Arab historical reality. I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to accept the Nile Valley, West African, Sub-Saharan African, right? Central African reality.
It's so, like, you know, when they show old movies and whatever, when everybody finds out that one guy in town is the guy that's been robbing everybody or whatever, and they all just go with the pitchforks and the flames and whatever, just at this man's house, just beating the door down, gonna get this guy. That's what they have to do to these black guys pushing foolishness to them. But they're not gonna do that, right? They're gonna come at Cujo. You know what I mean? Because Cujo said a European's his brother. Oh my gosh, no, you can't say that. Noble Ali said, yeah, but like, what do you mean? That's what you guys complaining about? When these guys selling you out and you guys aren't going at them and they're selling out the people? You know what I mean? Right now, it's Zanzibar we're talking about still.
Yeah.
Right? Now, why is there some
Tanzanians in Zanzibar called the Sufi Brotherhood, wearing fezzes.
This is not a new brotherhood. This is not like something they made up yesterday, or
you can't make this up yesterday. The Sufi Brotherhood in Tanzania, and they're wearing fezzes. How come they're not the Shiite Brotherhood or the Sunni Brotherhood? Why are they the Sufi Brotherhood and wearing fezzes? Right? Like that's a lesson of how broad the scope of the Moors is. That when Noble Drew Ali in Historical Message talks about the Moors as Mohammedans, he's not talking about some Sunnis and Shiites. He's talking about Sufis.
Us doing our thing.
He's talking about highly mystical individuals. Highly mystical. They might even do some stuff in front of you, make you blink a little bit. Right? Because it's not the African Brotherhood. It's not even the Tanzanian Brotherhood.
Not the Zanzibar Brotherhood.
Right? The Sufi Brotherhood.
That word is in there.
That word's in there. Right? All of them wearing fezzes. This is the continent where all these people say that they come from. And the black false leaders, right? The black agents, black power, black supremacy, all those people there, right? They're gonna say that fezzes have nothing to do with the continent as a whole. And this is Tanzania, brothers wearing fezzes, called the Sufi Brotherhood.
So from Mali to Zanzibar to Eritrea,
right across,
right across,
right
the
across
Sahara Desert. These people,
right,
rocking it,
rocking it,
from North Morocco down,
right. Which means everybody really knows, except these people in North America. Like everybody really knows. Like everybody. Because when we went to Japan, showed fezzes.
So the heads are rocking.
We went to Easter Island, showed fezzes. Right?
British Columbia.
British Columbia. Asia. Right? Indonesia. Philippines.
Us here are just
all over the continent of Africa. Europe, Spain,
India,
all these places, Americas, South, North, Central, Caribbean islands, everywhere everybody knows about Islam and the customs of Islam. Right? Everybody knows what's up.
Like, damn, okay, he's in response to my brother on the phone yesterday from prison said, tell the God I said hello. He said he'll know what I'm talking about because he's, in not Nation of Islam, but he's in not 5%er, but he's Dyson Bay. So his Moorish temple kind of analysis of the world through the prism of his own religious identity resonated with a guy 20 years ago who spoke directly to the crises, existential and political and social, that these young people were enduring. But when you get what you deserve, and if we're willing to be rigorous and demanding of ourselves, and you can't just get over because you positive, because you could be positively whack. You know what I'm saying? So you got to have something to say, right? It's like, and I'll end by saying this. It's like, in the church when people say, I've been saved. I no longer do the devil's music. I tell you, the devil had better beats than you as a Christian, right? Why does God get the whack stuff and the devil has the hot stuff? So what I loved about this wasn't a preaching at me like boom, but when I listened to what he's saying, that contained such serious, insightful engagement with the world as we know it, and he demanded a certain kind of excellence and rigor artistically that went along with his progressive politics. Because you can have progressive politics, but weak artistry, ain't nobody gonna listen to you. You can have whack politics and great artistry, everybody will hear you. But if you join them together like Nas did, whose world is this? The world is yours.
I get it. You know why? Because the ones that came before me, what they did for me. So it's only natural that somebody's gonna hear me and say, yo, that inspired me, because that's what we're here to do, inspire each other. If I haven't done that, I'm not doing anything. There's a lot of great rappers.
But we hope to see more.
See more, that's it, yeah.
But we hope to see more.
See more, that's it.
Dice and bake, 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 dice and bake.
Well, me and you, we can take over these cities that are majority black populated, right? Because in that city, we get all the infrastructure, all the land, we do de facto reparations, right?
Don't believe anything I say. Take notes and check it out.